Hello everyone. So introduction is back again with a new video, and today we are going to cover NCRT class 6 chapter number 6, that is new questions and ideas. So what all we are going to cover? We are going to read about the story of Buddha, the his teachings about the Upanishads, Jainism, the Sanghas and the monasteries. So let's begin. The story of Buddha. So we all know about Gautam Buddha. So Gautam Buddha, before becoming Buddha, Buddha itself means the wise. So before becoming Buddha, he was a common man and he was known to be as Siddharth. Okay, and he belonged to a small gun known as Satya gun, and he was a Kshatriya. I hope you remember from the last chapter I have taught you the difference between the gun and the sun. So gun is basically a group that has so many number of people. Okay, and Sangh is basically an association or organization. So Gautam Buddha belonged to a gun known as Sakya Gun. Okay, and he was a Kshatriya. And when he was a young man, he was he actually wanted to know the truth. And in search of truth, he actually left his house and he left all the comforts of his house and he meditated for days on end under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya. And this was the place where he finally attained the enlightenment. And the very first place where he first taught his teaching was a place in Varanasi, near in actually in Sarnath, near Varanasi. And he spent the rest of his life traveling from one place to another on his foot, and he started spreading his teachings. And ultimately, he passed away at Kushinagar region, also called as Kushinagar. Okay, so what was his teaching? So Buddha taught that life is full of suffering and unhappiness. And even if you want to get something and you get that thing, you will not be satisfied because you will want even. For example, you are eating a slice, you are eating pizza and somebody is offering you a more slice of pizza. So obviously you are not going to deny because that is a kind of a craving. And he describes this kind of a thirst or craving as tanha. And he said that you can actually get a control of these cravings by removing and following everything in moderation. So not going an extra mile and everything, doing everything in excess. You have to do everything in moderation. Okay. He taught people to be kind, to respect the lives of others and also that of the animals. And he believed in karma. He said that whatever actions you are performing, whether good or bad, it is going to affect you either in this life or in the next. So this is was the place where he gave his first teaching at Sarnath near Varanasi. So a stupa was erected over there to mark this place. Okay, we will be reading about more of the architectures in the later chapters. Okay, moving on. So here is a quick story about where Buddha is trying to teach one of the women about life, about how it is full of sorrow and unhappiness, and about the reality of death. So what happened was there was a woman who lost his child, and she was roaming around the street, and she was asking everybody so that anybody can bring back the life of his son. So one of the men actually referred him to Gautam Buddha. And she came to him and she asked him. So Gautam Buddha actually said to her that go and bring some mustard seed. Okay. And he kept a condition. And he said that you have to bring the mustard seed from that house where nobody has been dead ever. Okay. And now she was moving from one place to another to find anybody who can give her the mustard seed and in whose home nobody has been died ever since. But she could not find anybody. So indirectly, Gautam Buddha was trying to teach the lady that this is the part of life. Sorrow and unhappiness is going to be there, and death is ultimate. Okay, moving ahead. So let's read about Upanishads. Upanishads in itself mean the word means approaching and sitting near. So Upanishad is actually a conversation, a dialogue that is happening between teachers and students. And most of the thinkers of Upanishads are men, especially Brahmins and Rajas. Women actually participated very lesser, but one of the women who is very, very popular was Gargi. And she was very learned, she was very knowledgeable, and she used to debate in the Roti. Okay. And most of the ideas of the Upanishads were later developed by the famous thinker Shankaracharya. We will be reading about Shankaracharya more in the later chapter. Okay. Now here is sixth school of Indian philosophy. So what are the six schools of Indian philosophy? They are Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Samkhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta or Uttara or Mani. So there was a German-born British Indologist, that is Friedrich Max Muller. He observed this six system of philosophy and which were developed over many generations. And if you read these, you will it would seem to you that they are very distinct from each other. However, today we can find an underlying harmony in their understanding. Okay, so these are our India's intellectual exploration. All right, moving on. So here is one of again a story from Chandogya Upanishad, where a beggar actually taught a very beautiful life lesson to two of the sages. So what happened was two sages were eating something, and a beggar came to them, approached them, and he said that can you give me some food to me? I am hungry. So they said we cannot spare anything to you, okay, and we cannot give anything to you. So the beggar asked, whom do you worship? They said, we worship universal soul. Okay. So the beggar said, okay, so you worship universal soul. And he said, I hope you understand universal soul is something that is spread and fills the entire world. So the sages said, yes. So he said, so if you are denying me the food, that means you are denying the food to the universal soul because I am also part of that universal soul to whom you are denying. So indirectly, he taught something to the sage, and the sages then realized the truth and they gave the food or shared the food. Okay. Then there was a grammarian called Panini. Okay, and he was very famous. He prepared a grammar for Sanskrit. Just like we have grammar, English grammar, and we have vowels and we have consonants. So he actually also arranged vowels and consonant in a special order, and he created around 3,000 formulae. Okay, and he wrote down the rules. Just like we have formulae in mathematics and algebra, he also wrote down the rules of the language in short formulae. Okay, then Jainism. So the last and the 24th Tirthankara of the Jainism was Vardhaman Mahavir. And he was also a Kshatriya, just like that of Gautam Buddha. But he was a Kshatriya prince of Lichavis, a group that was part of Vajji Sangh. I hope you remember in the last chapter we talked about Magad, we talked about Vajji. Okay, and he belonged to a Sangha, that is an association or an organization. So at the age of 30, he also left his house and for 12 years he led a very hard and lonely life. And finally, he also attained enlightenment just like that of Gautam Buddha. And he taught a very simple doctrine. He said that any men and women who want to know the truth, they must leave their home. Okay. And he laid down some very strict rules of ahimsa that people have to follow. That means nobody should hurt any of the living beings. Okay. So there were some duties which the followers of Mahavir followed. So the followers were known as Jain. Okay. So the word Jain comes from the word term Jina, meaning conqueror. Okay. And they led a very simple life, and they have to be very honest, and they were specially asked not to steal. Also, the followers had to observe celibacy, and the men have to give up everything, including the clothes. However, these strict rules cannot be followed by everybody, and this Jainism was mostly followed by traders. Farmers could not follow it because of the teachings of ahimsa, because you cannot kill anybody, and obviously farmers had to cut the crop and so mostly they cannot follow, but they help those who follow. Okay. So the teachings of Mahavir and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. It was very later on that it was written. All right. Now the Sangh. So Sangh, we know it is a kind of an association or the organization. So association and organization of what? Of people who left their home. Okay. So, for the Buddhist Sangha, a rule was laid down and it was written in a book called Vinay Pitaka. So, both men and women, they joined Sangha and they led a very simple life. They meditated, and after meditation, they used to move from one place to another, village to village to beg. Okay, and that is why they were called as bhikkhus. Okay, and this is the Sanskrit word for renouncer, the beggar. Okay, and bhikkhuni. Since both men and women participated. So those who joined the Sangha, they included, so there were people from various sections of the society. From Brahmins also joined Sangha, Kshatriyas were there, merchants, laborers, barbers, courtesans, slaves. So these all people joined Sangha. All right, let's talk about monastery. So both Jain and Buddhist monks, we know that they moved from one place to another to spread the teaching. Okay, but however, in the rainy season they cannot move, and that is why they have to build a temporary shelter for them. So a temporary shelter was built for them. Okay, and permanent shelters known as viharas were also built for them. So the earliest viharas were made of wood, and then it started to be building it in brick. So some of the shelters were even carved out of the caves as well, especially in Western India. So over centuries, Buddhism spread to many parts of the subcontinent and beyond. And here is shelter carved out of cave, and this cave is in Karle, that is present day in Maharashtra. So both monks and nuns used to live and meditate over here. Okay, moving ahead. So one of the Buddhist texts teach us that just as the water and rivers lose their names in separateness when they flow into the mighty ocean, so are the worms and ranks instantly forgotten when the followers of Buddha join the orders of monks. So what it is implying is that when you are leaving your house in search of truth, then you are leaving behind your labels of positions and whatever you stand in society, and you are Brahmin or Kshatriya, you are shedding all of those labels. You are just human beings who is in search of truth. Okay. So this was the lesson, and everybody is equal and everybody is just human. Okay. So during this time when Jainism and Buddhism was spreading and becoming popular, so so Brahmins also developed a system called ashram. Okay, ashram word actually meant different things at that time. It is not something of that we understand today, a place where people live and meditate. It was actually a stage of life. So there were four stages of life which were recognized. That was brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. So Brahmin was something, brahmacharya was something when you have to lead a very simple life and you have to study Vedas. Okay. Then grihastha was something, a stage when you have to marry and you have to live as household. Then came the stage of vanaprastha when you have to live in the forest and meditate over there. Then finally comes the stage of sannyasi when you have to give up everything. And this system of ashrams were allowed to men. Okay, this actually allowed men to meditate sometimes. Okay, but we know from the earlier chapters as well, women and Shudras were not allowed to perform any kind of a ritual and to study Vedas. So, and during this time as well, the women were not allowed to study the Vedas, and they had to follow the ashram that was chosen by their husband. Okay, let's look at somewhere else apart from in this time frame what is happening in other part of the world. So in Iran, there was a prophet called Zoroaster, and he was very famous, and his teachings were contained in a book called Avesta. And if you draw a comparison, you would see that Vedas and the teachings which are contained in Avesta are very, very similar. Okay. And the basic teachings of Zoroasters are actually contained in a maxim called good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. So here is one of the words from the Avesta. Lord grant strength and the rule of truth and good thinking, by means of which all one shall create peace and tranquility. So for many, many years, thousands of years, Zoroastrianism was a major religion in India. But you would see later on, after the coming of Islam into picture, how people fled to other parts of the world and they settled down in coastal towns of Gujarat and Maharashtra. So Zoroasters were basically the ancestors of today's Parsis. Okay, so these are some of the important dates that you have to remember from this particular chapter. That Upanishadic thinkers, the Jain teacher, Mahavir, and the Buddha, we all things is happening in the year about 2500 years ago. And the Jain texts were written about 1500 years ago. That were not written there and then. They were just orally transmitting the teaching. It was the only written 1500 years ago. So that's the end of the video. I hope you like the video. So if you like it, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much.